Sojourner. That's an accent from Chicago. That's a Chicago accent. That's all I'm going to say.
That's fine. I'll take it. So I'm going to sit, but if I need to stand or raise my voice louder so y'all can hear me, I can most definitely do that. So welcome. So just very quickly, how many of you believe that we should be working on equality? How many of you believe we should be working on equity? Which one is more important? Equality is more important? They're both important. Oh, I'm hearing a lot of different things here. So, how many of you have ever gone to a football game? Let's go with the Packers because I am a Packers fan. I have the table, I have the mic. I got booed.
You about to lose this argument.
I know, right there. So, how many of y'all been to some type of sporting event? What happens during halftime? Huh?
No.
Halftime.
Entertainment.
There's entertainment. What else happens during halftime? People get up and what? Go to the bathroom, right? How many, we're going to be real, we all use the bathroom, so this is not personal information. So, question, what happens when we go to the bathroom? Ladies. Talk to each other when we're in line. Gentlemen, what happens when y'all go to the restroom? Is there a line like there is for the women?
No.
Not always. Not always.
We don't talk either.
That's right. Say nothing.
They're going to talk.
Don't talk to me, man.
So why is there a line? So there's enough bathrooms for men and for women, but why is there a longer line for women? There's the same number.
There's equal, but not equity.
So it's equal. There's the same amount of bathrooms. But why is there always a longer line then for women's bathrooms?
Different process.
What's the different process?
One's
Women.
longer and one's not.
Women use the bathroom differently than men. It's a different process. So equality, we're talking about same, right? Same is equal, equal is same. But now let's talk about equity. We know that women use the bathroom differently. There's some extra pieces that go into using the restroom. So what if the way we think about it is how we design our stadiums? Hint, hint, if anybody's working on that. So what if we look at that differently? What could that change if we start using an equity lens instead of an equality lens? So you would have more restrooms for women, or maybe the design would be different.
I've heard it's like about, needs to be about 3 to 2, is that right? Something like, like.
That's something for engineers. That's beyond me.
I just read that.
They're doing that.
People have studied it.
So this is a real conversation, but also when we talk about equality, same as equal, equal is same, no one is hurt. But equity. So let's talk about women once. So you're standing in line for the restroom, and as a gentleman, what are you typically doing if you're there with your daughter or wife or a friend that happens to be of a female gender? What are you typically doing while they're waiting in line? Waiting. You're waiting as well. So that is not only that piece right there, just using that example, is not only hurting women who are waiting in line, but men are having to wait just as much. So when we talk about this, is that racism, all these pieces affects all of us. All of us. And so I start with that is because we're talking about the institutional, the institute. And so Andre did a great job of talking about the individual. And so often when institutes do cultural competency, diversity training, we like to focus on the individual. But we know that it's like a piston in a car, right? Those of you who know anything about cars. It's working at the same time. You can't do one without the other. It needs to be working at the same time. So I just want to give two different examples very quickly. So I'm a storyteller. And so I like to tell what folks have done at this institutional level. So the first story is a very, very quick one about our early childhood program. I'm going to not name any names, but it's the early childhood program that located in a very diverse community. They serve approximately 98% children of color. Guess what percentage their teachers, guess what percentage they were, as in race or color?
0.
90%
2%. 90% what?
of people of color.
Their teachers?
Yes.
I hear no. No. They had one person of color working on staff, and that person was the cook. And so what they gave me a call and said, we need help. Just tell us where to go to find black teachers. And I was like, okay. So let's talk about that. So as we were going through this process, and I'll lay out the other example, I'll lay out their process a little bit more. But there was a number of things that they identified. But one thing that they identified is the way they recruit and their job description. For every single job at that early childhood program, you had to have a clean driver record. Now, none of the teachers are driving children around, but that was a requirement. So in this particular community, there was also something that was known as driving while black. So what does that mean when you're trying, in a community, trying to recruit teachers of color from that community, that the community also has a systemic problem of driving while black? So what happens then when you're trying to recruit from that community?
It's likely that the people in the community are going to have a higher rate of that kind of infractions on them.
And then that can hire. So the one thing we did was look at the way we do job descriptions and took that out right away, but really changed it and focused on attributes and skills. There are licensing requirements to be a teacher in an early childhood education program in the state of Minnesota. So there are absolutely requirements, but there are more skills and attributes that we needed, that particular program needed to focus on. So by changing this institute of the way they just do a job description, something that easy, but it was very difficult to change. So now, through that process, guess what that child care program looks like currently? And it's just one change. What do you think that program looks like now?
More equal ratio.
Huh?
A more equal ratio.
More equal ratio? 75% of their teachers are teacher of color, with 5 black males. So what has happened, So that's on the work piece. But what they did not expect was the change in the children that they're serving. Everything, when we talk about this opportunity or the achievement gap, I call it an opportunity gap. When we talk about this, the early childhood is our critical years. And just the change in classroom behavior and what they're learning, what they're exploring, how they're playing, their language, it has transformed these children where prior to this change, only about 30% of those children at that program was ready for kindergarten, which, by the way, statistically in the state of Minnesota, only 51% of children are ready for kindergarten. And when you break those up by race, it's even lower for Latino and blacks. Currently, they have 68% of those children in that program is ready for kindergarten. They didn't change their curriculum. They didn't bring in new fancy toys. It was the change of staff and really addressing the racial disparities within that program. With one change, and that came with the job description. So that's just one example. So another very quick example is a county that we've been working with, and they're still going through this process. We'll call them County X for today. It's a smaller county, and what they realized is that they had some major racial disparities. Shocking, right? We don't have those in Minnesota because we're very liberal. We don't have those here. Okay, so, okay. And so they knew they had some major disparities. And so they did an internal assessment of their different services, and they said, the only place we really need help is in the economics piece, because the only place we serve people of color is through cash assistance, our SNAP program, our child care assistance program, and housing. We don't serve people of color in any other programs. And I was like, really? Okay. So we started talking. The first step we talked about is we asked the question, when was this county created? What year was Hennepin County created? Became a county. Does anybody know? 1800 something?
1865?
1865? Is that a guess or?
Yes.
We became a state in 1858.
So it had to be before that.
So the first question we asked was, when did the county become the county, and for whom was the county supposed to serve? They need to be very real about their own history. Andre talked about this timeline and institutions that came out at that time. It was the same question we asked. Who was this particular county truly, what was it created for, and for whom? Then we started to go through as, who are we currently? What is our county's culture, internally and externally? And who is it that we want to be? So then we started looking at who can champion any type of real change. Because so often when we talk about changing institutes, we see people going at it from a grassroots level. And trust me, I love the grassroots plays. I love it. But like I said, I was very real with it. If your leadership is not on board, we're not going anywhere. So really being real about who is on board, who is the leadership, but then also who can help drive this. Who can make real decisions to push different pieces forward when we talk about equity. And so through those pieces, once you identify the history, who they are culturally, who they want